Caddis Maximus here. This is going to be a pretty quick review of these new kind of socket sets that these auto parts stores are selling. I actually didn't buy this. I'm just reviewing one that a friend who's borrowed some tools quite a few times asked to borrow a 10mm socket and tells me he's lost them all. And I said, tired of loaning 10mm sockets because you're just going to end up losing mine. Told him about these little sets and actually convinced him to buy them. It was like 16 bucks or something for this. AutoZone also sells them as a 10-piece set, but it's a bit more expensive. It's like 20 bucks, so he was cheap, went for the cheaper one. Auto parts stores, at least at the O'Reilly's, they have these in 10 and 12mm, and AutoZone, at least in the store, only had them in 10. I think they have them in a few other sizes. But this is an 8-piece socket set. It is all 10mm sockets. And I'm kind of realizing the idea behind these, and they may be legitimate, because for somebody like my buddy who doesn't uses them enough to lose them, but doesn't have a use for buying huge sets of arrays of sockets, really is just looking for the most common stuff to do general kind of auto repairs. That's what these are for. This set is giving you the most commonly used 10mm sockets in both 1/4 inch and 3/8, as well as a couple odd ones, such as these mid-wells. This would be known as a mid-length 1/4 inch drive socket, because the standard length one is, of course, this long. And then a deep well would, of course, be the next level length above that. And how they've kind of set up this is they've done it so that you get 3/4 inch sockets that give you these three sizes. And then you have a 3/8 deep well, which is just a little bit longer than the deep well in the 1/4 inch. And then they give you what are known as long sockets. These aren't, some manufacturers call these extra deep, but they are known as long sockets. And so this is just a really deep 5-inch deep well socket. It's only broached to about here, but that's a reasonable level. And so what you're getting is you're getting 5 different lengths of standard sockets. You're getting a 3/8 short well 10mm. They are all 6-point. And you're getting a couple of flex sockets, a real standard size, okay, 3/8. The 1/4 inch one's a bit cheap because it's just a bit floppy, and it's a little bit longer than standard ones. It has kind of a deep end on, or deep socket end, and usually these flex sockets are pretty stubby because they're designed to get into high access places, so it's a little bit of an odd choice for them to use an extra deep one like that. But that's the idea, and I think it's actually a wise choice, and I'm kind of glad, because this way, for somebody like that who's always losing 10mm, or who just has like a basic set of tools, can get these in like at least a 10 to 12mm. Online they have some other sets, but it would kind of be nice for the convenience just to see them stocking more of the other sizes, like the 14mm, 17mm sets, etc., because they could really work out for people, because then they would have a whole bunch of lengths of really the common sizes, and you would end up having a tool set that may be more useful. And then sizes, if you only buy, say, Japanese vehicles, I mean, you almost never run into 15s, 16s, 18s, or all those other weird sizes that you seem to run into with German cars and General Motors vehicles for some reason. And so you have a bunch of the sockets that you really need and some of the ones that you don't. Now, the AutoZone Duralast has come with like a mid-length 3/8, so it's a little bit wider variety, but for a little bit less money, at least they have these PowerTorques, and I think it's kind of an interesting idea. The only thing that's really kind of short-sighted about them is they're having these sockets custom made, and I can't find anywhere on like O'Reilly's site where they have a set of mid-length sockets, much less a set of long sockets. So the only place these seem to appear, at least for like these auto parts stores, are in these weird packages. So that's kind of lame, because you can't just get a set of these special sockets that come in these sacks or these packs. And they can be found, but usually it's the professional tool brands off of tool trucks, and then they are pretty expensive in that situation. So anyway, a couple people have mentioned that, and I've been curious about these. I finally couldn't justify buying them myself, but at least I found somebody else to do it, and I got a review out of it. One thing I did also want to mention that was cheesy is this is the socket strip that it came with. We can see it only has 7 positions, and as we saw in the package earlier, they just decided that the long socket was too long to put on a rail, so they actually only give you a rail for 7 of the sockets and let this float around. I thought that's a little bit cheesy. You know, even a junky socket rail like this will work just fine to hold a long socket just so it doesn't get rolling around. So I thought that was a bit chintzy for them just to take away one rail position, which their last ones don't do. Maybe someday I'll have an opportunity to review that set. Anyway, the quality of these sockets seems okay. For some reason, they don't quite have the same feel or finish as the normal PowerTorque ones, just because I'm looking inside some of these. It's a little bit hard to see, but the chrome plating really isn't super great on the inside of the socket. And the walls, particularly on these deeper ones here, are kind of thin. They're like really thin, almost like high access extra thin wall sockets. So it seems that when they're putting together these sets, that it may not even be the same manufacturer who puts together the normal socket sets that have their branding on them. Anyway, that's about it for this review, and it was just kind of a little discussion and talk about these kind of odd multiple of the same size socket sets. And they're kind of an interesting idea, but I think that they're a little bit poorly executed. They could maybe make a little bit of a different choice of what they're including, and the fact that they just have such a limited size availability just seems also a little bit disappointing for me. Furthermore, they aren't making available the real odd specialty sockets that come in these sets available by themselves for other people who may want to build out their sets. So this drives, it's one of the reasons that professional tool companies kind of are much more expensive, is because they also produce a much wider variety of tools which may not sell as much, which means more popular tools are kind of subsidizing low sales tools just so you can have that availability. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody watching and subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. Until next time, Catus Maximus out.